Thank you.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, please guide us in our decisions, because all decisions lead toward your children. Please help us understand with deep commitment what needs to be done above all else. Thank you for sharing this board with me. Thank you for helping our parents get on board with their children and love their children. And thank you for helping us work through very difficult times. Also, thank you for helping this board work together to make sure we do the right things for our kids, our teachers, and our community. In your name, amen. Practiced.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson.
No.
All right, at this time, I'm going to call to order the special meeting for July 29th, 2025. Welcome, citizens of Clay County. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend this school board meeting. This meeting is our opportunity as your elected representatives to collaborate openly and make decisions that will decide the future direction of our public schools and education of our children here in Clay County. If you wish to address the board on an agenda item, there will be an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Please fill out a card, which you will find located in the back of the room, indicating the specific item number or topic you wish to speak about, and turn it in promptly to one of our officers. If you have items that you would like to present to the school board or superintendent, please hand them to the officer who will distribute them accordingly. Your participation is welcomed and appreciated. And at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the purchase of iReady Mathematics K-5, an elevation platform for the 2025-2026 school year.
I'll move approval.
I have a motion for Ms. Hanson. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
I have a second for Ms. Gilhausen. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I am so sorry. Ms. Honora, can you just vote for me? Do you mind? Sorry, I don't have my my program pulled up. I'm sorry. Okay, at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing to approve as advertised modifications to the 2024-2025 student progression plan. So at this time, if there's any comments, you can come to the podium. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve as advertised the modifications to the 2024-2025 student progression plan?
I move to approve.
I have a motion from Ms. Clark. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a second for Mr. Alvaro. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing to approve as advertised school board policies entitled bylaws, agendas, parent organizations, booster clubs, and other outside support organizations, parent and family involvement in the school program, use of district facilities, grounds and equipment, wellness, and transportation. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
I have a motion from Ms. Hanson. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Ms. Gilhausen. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing to approve as advertised amendments to the 2025-2026 Student and Family Handbook and Code of Student Conduct. Seeing none at the podium, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve as advertised amendments to the 2025-2026 Student and Family Handbook and Code of Student Conduct?
I'll move approval.
I have a motion from Ms. Gilhausen. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Ms. Clark. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And at this time, we are going to have Ms. Dawn Posey come forward to review the 2025-2026 proposed millage and tentative budget.
Good evening, Superintendent and board members. Can you hear me? Is that good? Okay. So we're here tonight for the first public hearing to adopt the 2025-2026 tentative millage rates and budget. Just last week, you approved to have the tentative millage and the tentative budget to be advertised on July 22nd. Then on July 24th, that budget and proposed millage was advertised in the Clade Today. And then we're here tonight for the first public hearing on the advertisement of the 2025-2026 tentative millage and budget. And then our final will be September 11th, will be our final meeting for public meeting for the approval of the adoption of the 2025-2026 millage and tentative budget. Just a reminder from last week, I just wanted to clarify that, between the tentative is as a date certain of June 30th, where we captured all our numbers and data, and then as we go through July, August, and close the books, then that final will be representative of those changes. So some of these first couple of slides will be similar to last week, and we'll just kind of go through them a little bit here, but this is last 10 years millage rate comparison. You can see if you go through the last 10 years, you will see that the district has experienced a decrease in each of those years as it relates to the required local effort. You'll see for the 2025-26 in comparison to the 2024-2025, the variance is a 0.038, which is an increase from one year to the next. That required local effort is made up of 3.016, which is what the Florida Department of Education has dictated to us, as well as an additional 0.008 for a prior period adjustment to get to the 3.024 required local effort for us to participate in the FEFP program. So I would, all the other millages, the basic discretionary, our 1 mil, our capital outlay of 1.5, all of those stayed constant. There was no change, and so the only change is in the required local effort. I would add to this that the FDOE and the Florida statutes mandate that the required local effort millage rate for each of the 67 school districts, our required local effort rate of 3.024 must be levied for Clay County school districts to participate in the FEFP program and receive state funding in excess of $252 million. This next slide is just,
So before you go forward, can you just so is it my understanding that the board doesn't have any say in that amount? Okay.
correct. The board has no authority to change that or to make any changes to it or request a change in it. And it's like, it's an all or nothing thing. It's like you either participate in the FEFP program or you don't. You either get $252 million of state funding and whatever other state funding they want to get us, or you don't. It's not you don't have a choice. So on this slide, this is the last 10 years of property assessment comparison, and you can see that for each of those 10 years, the property value in Clay County has gone up. Between the 2023 and 2024 to the 2024-2025, it increased about $13 million, and then the comparison of this fiscal year to last is increased about $14.3 million. We did this last week too, and I just think it's kind of important for everybody to kind of remember. So this is, as Kelly would say, our trip down memory lane, which I love a lot. But I think it's important for everybody to understand all the many factors, and there's many of them that have influence or have had an impact on this year's budget. And I'll just briefly go through them all because I know we discussed them last week. But like March 3rd, right around the time that I got here, you know, the FEFP third calc was 2 months late. No wiggle room, no ability for any of the 67 school districts to make any kind of adjustment in their budget if they needed to. That also indicated in that third calc that Clay County was lost $5 million due to a decrease in enrollment. June 13th, the FEFP conference report was released. That also, it had in there a base student allocation of $41.62, but as discussed, not sufficient to cover 3% inflation, new FRS rates, rising health costs, electricity. June 26th, unbeknownst to any school district, everyone's FEFP was shorted. Some school districts didn't get any money at all. For Clay County, that represented $647,000, which is a lot. The statewide was shorted $47 million. On June 30th, the eve before the beginning of the next fiscal year, the federal government announces that they're withholding federal dollars. To date, there's no fourth FEFP calculation to close the books for school districts, charter schools, DJJs, because they're all paid basically the same way that we are off those calculations. And then I added on here that July 25th, that the Trump administration announced that they would release the remaining federal dollars related to Title II, Title III, and Title IV. I added that on here. I just wanted to add note to that's just one small little piece of a whole bunch of pieces. So while wonderful and great and relief to us, it's just one small little piece. And so I just wanted to make sure that we realize that there's a lot of other events that have affected this year's budget. And thanks to Kelly again, we are going to take a break from looking at numbers and just kind of graphically look at this picture and kind of put in perspective here that I just wanted to make sure that the FEFP calculation is very old. It was established in 1973, like 52 years ago. So funds, both the state and the local, Clay County and the state of Florida, put money into one pot, one bucket. The state's money is determined by the legislators and is appropriated, and that's what's appropriated that they're going to fund education with. The rest of the funding for the FEFP program comes from the districts, from local money, and that is where the required local effort comes in. So the tax appraiser office certifies our property value. DOE gets that, and then they look at that, they look at how much they got appropriated, they run the whole calculation, and then they tell us what our required local effort is to put into that pot for us to get their state funding. So again, it's a partnership. Every 67 school districts participate. It's the same thing for everybody. And just to reiterate again, it's an all or nothing relationship. It's you're either in or you're out. Okay, just real quick again, I just wanted to kind of go down the millage rates for this year. So the state required local effort millage rate will be 3.024, which will generate $63.6 million. Our basic discretionary millage of 0.748 will generate approximately $15.7 million. Our additional millage, our 1 mil, will generate $21 million. And then our basic discretionary, our capital outlay of 1.5 is going to generate $31.6 million for a total millage rate of 6.272. So on this slide, I kind of wanted to show and kind of put in perspective a calculation that shows you and discusses what the rollback rate is. So the rollback rate is the rate that would generate the same amount of tax revenue that was levied in the past year based on current year property values. So when you look at the first column here for 2024-2025, you will see that the taxable value of $20.4 billion at a millage rate in that year 2024-2025 of 6.234 generated $127 million. If you go to the second column, you say to yourself, what would the millage rate need to be to generate that same $127 million? So in the rollback rate column, you will see there are $21.2 million That basically includes adjustments based on additions, and it's basically off of the DR 420. That multiplied by the 5.983889 millage rate will generate $127 million. So you want to be able, you want your rollback rate to equal to what you would have generated last year. That rollback rate would be 5.983889. If you go to the next column, the 2025-2026, you will see that our current actual property value is $21.9 billion. Our millage, like we just talked about, is 6.272. And then based on that millage, that property value, the dollars generated will be $137 million. So the $137 million is greater than what the rollback rate, the money that would generate of 127. So based under that, under state law, we are required to, and we did advertise last Thursday in the Clay Today, a tax increase, because we are generating more revenue than what we would have done last year. And again, just to emphasize again, this is told to us, required to us by law, and you have no authority to change this. As we go forward, I just kind of wanted to just bring up, we're going to do two scenarios so we can all kind of see how the millage rate would affect a taxpayer here. Just something to remember, like as we move forward with the presentation and what you will be assessed for your property taxes is a function of the value of your property. If your property was assessed and worth more this year than last year, you will pay more in taxes. So I thought we would just kind of walk through two scenarios related to this. So in this scenario number one, the assessed value of the property is $200,000. If you filed for a homestead exemption, were approved, that would be $25,000, and then your taxable value would be at $175,000. So if you go down to the next little bucket down there, you will see that this year's millage rate is 6.272. If you apply that to the taxable value of $175,000, you will see there in the bottom bucket that this year's taxes will be $1,097.60. When compared to what you paid last year, those taxes were $1,090.95. So there's an increase of $6.65 for the current year, which is 0.6095%. So if you go to scenario number two, this scenario assumes that there's a 3% increase in your assessed or your property value. So with that 3% increase, your $200,000 assessed home is now $206,000. You file for a homestead exemption and get $25,000, and so then your taxable value would be $181,000. Again, if you apply this year's millage rate at 6.272, you will get taxes that you will have to pay this year of $1,135.24. And so like you see in that last box there, when you compare that to last year's taxes of $1,128.36, you will see an increase of $6.88 or 0.6097%. Okay, so now on to the budget part of it, the numbers and all our funds. So the total budget for Clay County School District for the 2025-2026 school year, for the general operating budget, it's going to be $419 million. For the special revenue fund, it will be $48 million. For debt service, it'll be $7 million. For the capital projects funds, it'll be $141 million. And then for your internal service funds, it will be $53 million, for a total of all funds of $669,862,016. So I put this slide in here. Well, I didn't take this slide out. I kind of just wanted to, this is just focusing on the general fund and just state revenue. That's all this one is focusing on. And I just wanted to show, like we did last week, that on this slide, you can see the FEFP dollars for each of the years. You will also, if you go down there, you will see the Family Empowerment Scholarship, which are direct deduction from those FEFP dollars. And then you can see that that has increased from scholarships in 2024-2025 of $22 million to $29 million in 2025-26, which is a 7.4 increase. And then if you go down to the class size reduction line, you will see that between the two tentative budgets for the fiscal years, there's a decrease of $666,000. And so these next slides, we're just going to kind of go into just the estimated, for each of the funds, we're going to go into general fund estimated revenue, which the state fund money that we just talked about in the previous slide is included in here along with the local. But we're going to do the general fund estimated revenue, the general fund appropriations. For each of these, we'll go through all the funds like this. So the only thing I wanted to point out on this slide was that if you look under local, you'll see that the required local effort has, which is the RLE, has increased from one year to the next at about $3.8 million. And then that's also coming into your general fund. And then you will see down at the bottom at the transfers that the transfers from the capital projects funds into the general fund to pay for capital-related items, maintenance, that has increased $4.7 million. Then on the appropriation side for the general fund, if you look at the very first row under the appropriations for instruction, I just wanted to point out that $239 million is 66% of the budget, which is appropriated to teachers and the salaries. We have for the 2025-2026 year, we have total appropriations of $370 million, which is about $20 million less than what we appropriated last year, which just kind of puts in perspective that we are going into this next school year with a tighter budget than previously.
Can I just ask a question real quick?
Yes.
It's just clarification if anyone is curious, but can I take money, let's say, out of food services and buy teacher materials? Can we just take money out of any of those things? Or do we have to use those funds for what it was dedicated for?
You have to stay within your fund and use it for the purposes that they were dedicated
So
for.
these funds are monies that are specified for those areas? Okay.
And the general fund is really, all the other funds have specific purposes.
Yeah,
And then the general fund is your catch-all.
right, okay.
Yeah. Correct. So on this slide, this is the 1 mil side for the estimated revenues. And again, under local here, you will see that the non-voted operating tax, the 1 mil, between the 2 years, the tentative budget, you will see that the difference is an increase for this year of $1.3 million. And then, yeah, that's basically the majority of the money there. $21 million will come in for 2025, 2026, and that's going to equate to a $1.3 million increase over the last year because property values have gone up. And then on the 1 mil appropriation side, where we appropriate and we put money on the lines for expenditures, you will see under the appropriations, under the facilities, acquisition, and construction, we've categorized everything that's in here as security enhancements. And then on the bottom, we've added a footnote to what those security enhancements are: lighting repair, replacement, communication systems, badging, cameras, fencing, etc. And then right underneath that, a couple lines underneath that, you will see operation of plant. Those are security operations. And then it's in that line that you will see our contract with the Sheriff's Office, the Orange Park Police Department, the Green Cove Police Department. Those would be included in that line. And 98%, if you were to add up the $2 amounts on those lines, the $7.9 million that's related to security enhancements and the $10.4 million that's related to security operations, that represents 98% of the total amount appropriated in that fund for expenditures. Okay, so on our debt service fund, the debt service fund is derived, they get their revenue from the capital projects fund so they can pay their bills. So that, on this slide right here, if you look down at the bottom under transfers in, you will see that for the upcoming year, which is consistent with prior year, we will transfer in from the capital projects fund $6.2 million to pay for our debt. And then on the next slide, that debt is appropriated and it's put in lines related to, just like paying your mortgage on your house. So redemption of principal, we've allocated $4 million, and then for the interest, it's $2.3 million. And that's to pay for our COPS payment for the 2 additions to Oak Leaf Junior High and Lake Asbury Junior High, and then it's also to pay for the last year of the bus lease. Okay, and then the next one is the capital outlay fund. So if we go through the capital outlay fund and look at the estimated revenue, 98% of the revenue in this fund is derived from, and you can see this under the 2025-2026 tentative under local, is derived from the local capital improvement, the 1.5 mil, which will bring in the $31.5 million, the sales tax, which is going to bring in about 20 million, and then our impact fees have been estimated at 9.5 million. And then on the appropriation side for our capital outlay funds, you can see, if you go in the column for the 2025-2026 tentative budget, you can see that the first line there, buildings and fixed equipment, we have budgeted there $46 million. And then several lines down under remodeling and renovations, we have $47.2 million. And those 2 lines alone represent approximately 80% of the money that's going to come in. It's going to be appropriated to those items. And then under transfers out, something else to point out, because we did say that money was coming into the operating fund, and we said money was coming into the debt fund. Well, here's where the money's going out from, is from the capital funds into those funds. And this will, to the operating fund will be 10.7 million, and to the debt service fund, it will be 6.2 million to pay our principal and interest.
Really quick, I had a constituent ask me specifically about how we use impact fees. Can you explain how that's how that fits in our budget and what we are allowed to spend that revenue on?
So, impact fees would, and Bryce can correct me and add to this, new construction, yes. And you also are allowed to spend it on the payment of principal and interest on your COPS if you so wanted to.
So debt service and new construction.
Yes.
And it has to be in the area in which the impact fees are collected, correct?
No, it just has to be new growth.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, food service. So food service has 2 sources of revenue. The first is going to be they get reimbursed from federal revenue through the National School Lunch. And for the 2025-26 year, that's going to represent about 15.4 million. And then the local sales lunch breakfast, that's going to be about 5.3 million. And then on the food service appropriation side, the majority of the money is placed in, of course, the line for materials and supplies for food. That's going to be $11.5 million will be in that line. And then for salaries and benefits, that's the second highest, largest appropriation. That'll be $7.3 million. Okay, so for the special revenue fund, we have federal grants. That's one of the funds where just federal dollars goes into it related to all of our grants. So what I did on this slide is just something I just kind of wanted to remind everybody, like this was as of June 30th. Remember everything that happened in the federal government. So this listing is as of June 30th when the federal government said they were withholding money. So if you can go through this, you'll see we've listed all the grants. Title I Part A as of June 30th was going to be $5.8 million. But then as you go down, I specifically listed them in here just so, somebody would know that it was $0, but like at June 30th, Title II, Title III, those were $0. You'll see for Title IV Part A, you'll see $79,000 there, but that's really like a rollover from last year because we had things that were encumbered against those funds, so that's a rollover. But then we had career and technical education in here at $394,000, and then we had Individuals with Disability Education Act, K through 12, at 9.7 million. So as soon, and I just wanted to kind of put this out here, as soon as we get the grant award notifications from DOE, the budget will be updated, and then everyone can kind of incur obligations against those money, and those changes, when we update that budget, all that will be reflected in the September 11th. So this is not, this is tentative. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean we're not going to get any more federal dollars. It just means that as of June 30th, this is what we were fully aware of, and this is all we can do. So unless we have a grant award notification in hand, we don't put the money on or allow anybody to obligate anything against those monies. And then I just wanted to add, most of these grants, like you know, are spent on salaries and benefits, curriculum, instructional materials to support the children. Okay, that was our federal grants. The last fund here is our internal service fund, which captures the medical and workers' comp programs for our employees, kind of like going off of the conversation that we had this morning a little bit. I just wanted to make note and kind of say that it is very important that we have a fund balance, at least a healthy fund balance, because the problem is you don't know when you're going to have an unexpected claim. You don't know when you're going to have a high claimant. You just don't know when something's going to happen. We don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what claims are out there that have not been reported. So that's just kind of something that to keep in mind. I will bring your attention to the 2025-2026 tentative column right there. You will see that for the beginning fund balance coming into this year for the internal service funds together is 7.9, and we have budgeted that at the end of the year. We've budgeted that'll be 9.4. So slow growth, slow reserve is the only way you can do it when you get into internal service funds. Okay, that's all I had on all the funds. And this is your notice that the final public hearing will be for the 2025-2026 millage rates and budget will be Thursday, September 11th at 5:05 here in this building.
Thank you, Ms. Posey. At this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing for comments on the 2025-2026 tentative budget and millages. So at this time, if you would like to come forward and make comment on that, you can go ahead and state your name and your address at the podium, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
My name's Dennis Matheny. I live at 1825 Green Springs Circle, Unit B, Fleming Island, Florida. I've heard some numbers here, and I see it looks like a $10 million increase for the budget here. It looks like, from what I've seen, from 135 to 147, or 137 to 147. I'm surprised property values go up, millage goes up, and then you generate that much more money. I thought you try to stay within a certain amount. So as property values go up, millage would go down to maintain roughly what you have as income. The other thing I just saw at the end there about what's the difference between disadvantage at 6 million and disabilities at 9 million? I don't understand that. So if someone can explain that, I'd really appreciate that.
Ms. Dawn can speak to you, or Ms. Posey can speak to you after the meeting, or,
That's okay.
or,
That's fine.
okay.
Yeah, I
That way she
don't
can
have to wait
explain the
here. You got a
difference.
meeting to run.
Yeah,
I don't have to wait on you. Go ahead, you run your meeting. That's fine. Thank you very much for your time.
Did you have any further that you wanted to say? No, ma'am, that's it. Okay, that was your question. Okay, yep. And she'll speak with you afterward. That way you can get more of an in-depth answer. Okay. Seeing no more comments at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing. And can I get, next up, we're going to adopt the 2025-2026 tentative budget all funds, and set the public hearing for the 2025-2026 final budget Thursday, September 11th, 2025 at 5:05 PM. Can I get a motion?
I'll move approval of that.
I have a motion from Ms. Gilhausen. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Albero. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 26, or can I get a motion for Resolution 2601, request for adoption of the 2025-2026 CCDS tentative millages for required local effort, basic discretionary, capital improvement, and additional voted millage.
I'll move to adopt the resolution.
All right, I have a, I have a motion for Ms. Hanson.
I'll second.
I have a second for Ms. Clark. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And then the next one, can I get a motion for the resolution 2602, request for the adoption of the 2025-2026 CCDS tentative budget?
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion for Ms. Clark. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
I have a second for Ms. Gilhausen. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Just for clarification, it was a motion for approval, correct, Ms. Clark?
All right, and at this time, we are going to have operations come forward to present the educational facilities plan.
Mr. Superintendent, Madam Chair, for the first time, Mr. Beeman is going to present on growth, so I wanted to come up and introduce Mr. Beeman as it is his first time, so we look forward to having him.
Superintendent Broski, Madam Chair, esteemed board members, thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation on growth. I have to say, I've never seen Lance so relaxed. He knew he didn't have to present tonight, so. So what I want to spend a few minutes talking to you about is the growth in the area. Now, this is going to be a gathering or a display of statistical data combined with what we've observed in the goal of creating a projection for student growth in the next 5 to 10 years. First, let's start with the summary. We know there's 43 Clay County District schools, managed schools, and 4 charter schools. We project that we're going to add at least another 2 schools in the next 10 years. We have 2 wing additions that are going to be open this year, Lake Asbury and Oakleaf, which we've talked about. We have 1 under construction at Rideout Elementary and 2 more planned in the next 4 years. We ended the year with an enrollment of around a little more than 41,000 students, and we project that our student enrollment will increase by 11,600 in the next 10 years. To house those students will be the more than 19,000 homes that we estimate will be built in the next 10 years. To house those students within our school system, we estimated it needed at least $240 million to create the student stations for those students. So let's start with statistical information. The last census performed was in 2020. Between the census taking periods, the University of Florida does an analysis each year for growth in the county. And they show that from 2020 through to 2024, April specifically, because that's the last study we have available, we had a growth of 18,000 individuals. On the right-hand side, the table on the right, you see a growth of 2% overall for the last year. What's interesting to note about this slide is where that growth is taking place. I don't think it's a surprise, but it's all mostly in the unincorporated areas of Clay County, which are Middleburg, Fleming Island, and Lake Asbury. This slide has 3 different projections, a low, medium, high, and it is a perfect example of kind of showing the fuzziness of projections as you go out further and further. And Mr. Brodsky called it the cone of uncertainty, and that's a great way to describe it. As we go out, we just don't know. But what I would take away from this slide is that the worst case, we're staying about the same. Best case, we're growing about 60% over the next 25 years. So that's exciting. Now, we know there's growth projected, a pretty strong possibility it's going to occur. How do we extrapolate the number of students that are going to come from that growth? And the way we do that is something called a student generation rate. And the student generation rate is a study that we have performed every 2 years, and it tells us about how many students expect one household to generate if they come from a single-family dwelling, a multifamily dwelling, or a mobile home. Now, this is pure statistics because, according to math, it's a quarter of a student, which is not realistic. But on the right-hand side, we can see the change from the prior rates. The left-hand side is a study that was commissioned in May. The right-hand side is the change. And what's interesting is that the shift in the student generation in the type of dwellings, it's moving away slightly from single-family homes to multifamily and mobile homes. Overall, it's still an increase, but it's definitely a perceivable shift. So one tool we have to take the construction in Clay County and convert it into real numbers is a metric called a certificate of occupancy. And a certificate of occupancy is literally a certificate that the county issues once a dwelling is built and passes all safety codes and inspection. So we know that when a COO is issued, that dwelling is done. And we track that on a monthly basis. And this display on the left-hand side is a summary with a concentration to show the distributions of certificates of occupancy over the last year. So everywhere you see a hexagon is at least one certificate of occupancy. As you move to the red and the orange, towards the red spectrum, the density increases. And you can see that follows the expressway, and with a tremendous concentration in the Lake Asbury area. And this is evidenced in the information on the right-hand side that breaks down where we're seeing those certificates in 2024-5 alone. Now, the certificate, one metric I showed here too is the impact fees paid. An impact fee is assessed against the builder when the certificate, the builder's issued a permit. So that doesn't necessarily correlate with the certificate's occupancy, but building is down for this year compared to last. So we know where the homes are being built. What kind of homes are they? The predominant homes, dwelling type in Clay County at this time is a single-family attached or detached home. Those are what are being built in the Lake Asbury, Oak Leaf, and Orange Park, and et cetera. Also shown here are multifamily, and then modular homes, and then mobile and manufactured. So for the purposes generally manufactured and mobile homes are considered the mobile home rate. So with that, we can use our student generation rates to determine how many students are going to be showing up in our schools when the dwelling is completed. On the bottom is an interesting metric that shows what the rate of building is. So my observation for this last year is that a single family, the builders build about a rate of 173 dwellings a month in Clay County, so which is pretty impressive. And based on that, If they were to continue full bore, we get about 20,000 homes in 10 years. So now we know where the homes are being built. We know what kind of homes. How about the future? So this slide shows all of the developments that are in progress. The color spectrum that you see goes from yellow to red, with red being the density and the number of homes in a particular development. On the right-hand side, you can see the dwellings that are expected in each area, and at the bottom, the number of students that will be generated. So there we get our number of almost 12,000 students. As you can see, overall for the county is only 17% built, so we have a long way to go over the next 10 years. Digging in specifically, I'm going to take a look at some of the real hot spots. We're going to start with Lake Asbury, which you can't drive through Lake Asbury without recognizing or seeing the construction. And on this particular image, every little red Monopoly home is one of those certificates of occupancy I mentioned earlier. So you can see where all the activity is. And what's interesting here is that when I moved to Clay County in 2010, I lived in Lake Asbury, and Rolling Hills was already an established development. People would say, okay, that's been around for 15 years now. They're just adding another 200 homes to Rolling Hills. Same with Cross Creek. It's about built out, but I just got a proposal from a developer to add another 130 homes to Cross Creek. So even though this is some of these developments have been around for a while, they're still adding homes. Another proposal I received was to fill in some of anywhere you see white is potentially is either an existing development, but I think that there's still more building to come in Lake Asbury. I do want to point out the yellow parcel on the top middle of the image. That is a piece of land that the district owns. It's about 96 acres, so more than adequate for a high school. So that's a potential location. As far as capacity goes, these capacities are total capacity, which does include the portable buildings in addition to the brick and mortar structures.
I have a question really quick about the high school. I know that there's state statute that dictates that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But I get asked about that piece of property, I would say probably every few months consistently, like what school we're gonna put there, what are we, and I know we're still kind of like up in the air, but do we know I guess, and it's probably not a fair question to ask, but like looking at this growth, when will we have our decision on what school it would be and when we would build it? Because several people out there will tell you that their schools are overcrowded, they need more schools. What are we doing? We have this land. So just to address that, if you can. If not, I mean, I get it, because it still might be too early.
Well, I wish we could say it's going to be built on this date. I think that would be unfair because much of this information is a future projection. As I mentioned earlier, is very, very unclear. And furthermore, it's very expensive to build a school, a high school especially, $250 million plus. So frankly, I think, Lance, the direction I've been given is we try to not build schools if we don't have to. We handled possible growth capacity issues with rezoning like we did with the 6th grade earlier this year. And things like that. So, short answer, I don't know, and we're not sure yet. Now we have other sites, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. So you'll see some other alternatives that we need to consider as well. Sure.
Did I see that we had pushed the projection date back for that particular school, whatever it's going to be, to 2030 somewhere? From 2028 to 2030?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
Was that because of
I guess, the slowdown of growth this year and a different trend?
Yes, that's correct. And you'll see, towards the end, we have the projection of schools when we expect for them to be open.
Okay.
Ms. Skipper, can I address your question just a little bit? If you recall, when we purchased the property, we purchased it to kind of, lack of a better term, to put it in our back pocket. And the reason for that is, just as Paul alluded to, all of that white will eventually someday be, there will be homes there. So we purchased that with the anticipation that there would be no more land in that area. And we wanted to keep that in our back pocket. So he is correct in saying we really don't know when we're going to build that school. However, we wanted to have that. As you know, the increasing prices of property in that area, and also the unavailability of property in that area. So that's the reason we purchased that property, just to keep it in our back pocket.
Thank you. I wanted to have that discussion, so thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, it's one thing I get asked a lot on the planning commission is when we're going to build that middle school in Fleming Island. So there's a lot of speculation that's
Don't
out
bring
there.
that up.
It gets brought up whether I want to or not. But so let's talk about Green Cove Springs and how it looks there. So Green Cove is a long tail on this projected growth. We have three major developments: Saratoga Springs, Governor's Park, and Agricola, which they're starting to move dirt around for Saratoga Springs. They haven't started moving dirt, but there's been a lot of plat approvals for Governor's Park, and that's going to be a multi-phase development, so it'll take several years to get built out. Agricola has not come past my desk yet, but so remains to be seen, but we have to take it into account. So this section of the Clay County is the one that is one of the most interesting sections as far as a hotspot for growth.
I couldn't see the number on there. The Rookery, how many homes is that supposed to generate? Is that 2,000?
2,100.
Okay, and they've already started building out there?
Yes, they've started building. They just started building this year. In Middleburg, things cooled down a bit, but there's still a lot of growth to be had. A lot of multifamily growing in Middleburg, townhomes, and the still only 9% built. So we can anticipate another 706 students coming from there. And once again, this is what we know today. Another development can show up any day. So there's no way to knowing what that is, hence the cone of uncertainty. But this is what we see today. Oakleaf is another area that's close to 50% built. Still a lot of development to take place. One major development that's coming in is the district, or Oakleaf Phase 2 is what they're calling it. The names on these change often. But that was going to be single-family homes, and then it got changed to single-family detached, and it got changed to single-family attached. So they started moving dirt and building there too. So that's going to be coming online in the new year.
Another question I've been asked, and you may not have the answer to this, is the state planning at any time in the near future to add lanes to Highway 16 with the growth in the Green Cove and Lake Asbury areas?
There is a plan to widen 16.
Okay, but we don't.
I don't know the exact time frame of that, Ms. Gilhausen, but I do know that is a plan to do that.
Okay, thank you.
And it may be difficult to see from the distance, but on these maps, there's dotted lines, and those are projected roads. So these are future roads, is probably the better way of saying. This is where they're going to build roads in Clay County. And I was going to say, there's not many in Middleburg, but Green Cove, there's roads, and then specifically in Saratoga Springs, there's roads coming through there. So all of that is going to increase the connectivity and traffic flow in that area. So these next two slides are frankly what I would describe as an eye chart. But rather than try to dig into the data that's on them, you'll be getting a printout and you can look at it, and feel free to reach out with any questions. What I want to call your attention to are the highlighted schools. These charts show a projection of student incapacity for the next 5 years. The next slide is 6 to 10 years. In the yellow the yellow highlighted are years when the utilization of that school jumps from 100, goes up to 100% to 109%. If there's red, that means it's above 100, it's 110% or greater. So what's interesting is you look at this, you can see, well, these are areas that we expect to grow. However, and you really, it's very difficult to see in this slide, there's an asterisk next to, like, one of the schools is Rideout Elementary. Well, we have a wing going in right now for there. So this is, once again, a projection. And, but if it's, we want to avoid, is it from turning yellow to red? That's our goal. So let's look at years 6 through 10. And what's interesting, if you go back, you see how as time passes in these areas that they're not addressed, they go from yellow to red. So we will definitely need to stay ahead of that and have a plan for that. So I mentioned the parcel of land that we have in Lake Asbury, but we also, as part of the agreement with the development firm for Saratoga Springs, we have a couple sites that are going to be made available to us for potential high school and another elementary school. Once again, this is all tentative. In the sizes you see there are what we think we'll need, and in some cases the minimum for a new high school or the school of the type. But 2 in the Saratoga Springs area, and then if you look at Governor's Park, as part of the agreement with them, we have 3 areas which we can put schools for a two K through 8s and another high school if needed. Now it's going to take some time for Governor's Park to get built, but once again, so that's a total of, we had 1 in Lake Asbury, 2 potential sites in Saratoga Springs, and 3 in Governor's Park. So lots of land is for our back pocket, as Lance mentioned.
Maybe, I just wanted to know, when you're talking about impact fees for huge subdivisions like that, and it's all inclusive with the 3 schools in there, you may or may not know how to answer this, but do the impact fees cover those 3 schools, or just part of those 3 schools? And what is the?
Well, okay, in this particular case, this was for Governor's Park, was a prop share agreement. And one of the options that a developer can do is either pay a fee or they can give us some land. And they chose to provide land to us. And so that's what you're seeing here.
If I may, real quick. If they do, it's never enough to pay for an entire school. And the developments are built kind of in a trickle. So we never get X number of dollars, hey, you can go ahead and build a school. So we have to use several other fund sources, especially when it's a brand-new school, even if it's in a new area.
Because I heard advertisements for the agri community that's going in, and they said inclusive with schools. Does all of that becomes, I don't want to say it's our burden, I mean, we've got all these houses going up, but if they have inclusive with schools and this has 3 properties, that's up to Clay County to figure out when the time comes?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, and I would just add to that, Ms. Hanson, they do always have the option for a private school or a charter school, and that would be outside of our,
So it could, a school.
a school. I would ask for clarification if they're expecting a public school or if they're expecting a charter or private. If they're giving timelines and advertising that would be my question.
So right now with Governor's Park, we have an agreement for 3 pieces of property at this point in time.
That's correct. And we're still negotiating with them about where that'll be. In fact, we've talked to them, and Lance could probably shed some more light on this because it was negotiated before my time, but they may give us another piece of land someplace else instead, because a lot of these developers, they control large amounts of land and have other options for us. So it's something we keep an eye on. We want to put a school, if we're going to have to build a school, we want to make sure we're building it in the right place.
I also have a question too, Ms. Ellis. As far as impact fees, we don't get them immediately, correct? Don't they come, like trickle in a year later or something like that? Or
They-
how does that work?
They come in at the certificate of occupancy once the power is turned on.
Okay. Okay, so we do get it as soon as the power's turned on?
As soon as the power is turned on to the household, yes.
Okay. So that still trickles in?
Yes, it's still a trickle. It's not like, hey, we're building this development. It's, you know, it's going to impact us $25 million. Here's a $25 million check. It does not happen like that.
Right, we essentially get the impact fees when the students are there.
Correct.
So
Yes.
you're kind of behind the curve. That's
Correct.
the way it's designed.
Correct. And that's why, you'll see, I'll talk a little bit more about it, but that's why we can use impact fees to pay for debt service.
I just wanted to clarity on that, because I think people get confused about where our money comes, how it comes, and they think, they see all these houses and they're like, well, you have all that money, but it's not necessarily when we need it. So that's what, thank you for that clarification.
Ms. Hanson, can I clarify a little bit on the land in the Governor's Park area or any other land that they want to call it a donation. It's not a donation, it's a conveyance for a swap in credits. So anytime we receive land based on the previous agreements, we have to provide credits to impact fees for that land. So that land particularly, we will not get impact fees for. We'll get them, but we will have to credit that. Anything in excess of the 6,000 homes that do come into Governor's Park, then we can apply those impact fees to building. But primarily, we must credit the land first. So I just wanted to kind of clarify how the agreements work. And that is by state statute.
I think that's another important point, Lance, is that those sorts of things are not negotiable. Like we're told basically what we are allowed to collect and what we have to do with that money, and how to orchestrate the purchasing of land. Like there are requirements that we have to meet and limitations on what we can do as far as purchase goes with land use.
So we know, we have growth. We've learned that we're going to need some more student stations, and we saw kind of the projection for the next 10 years. Here's what we propose in the next 5-6 years to build from a facility standpoint. As I mentioned earlier, the Rideout Elementary classroom addition is currently being built with the expected opening in 2026. We hope to build a Lake Asbury Elementary addition and have that open by 2028. The same with, in Wilkinson, another addition there with an opening at 2030. That last entry is a high school RRR. You saw that a few times in the presentation. That's a little bit of the mystery as to where that's going to go at this particular time, but we know for certain we'll need a high school at some point. So I appreciate your time. Three takeaways I'd like to say is just recall that these are all projections too, that we know that there's going to be growth in Clay County. And then 3, that it's very concentrated within the county. You may hear about enrollments dropping, but in the southeast by southeast area of Clay, we really are going to see a lot of new growth. Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening. I'm going to talk a little bit about how are we going to manage all this growth? How are we going to pay for it and maintain our current facilities, our buses, and whatnot, and what that looks like. A lot of the numbers that I'll discuss briefly are what you've already seen from Dawn. It dives a little bit deeper. I have handed out to you guys at the beginning of the meeting the educational facilities plan. If you want to follow along a little bit, I've mentioned the pages. So what exactly is the educational facility plan? So it's a 5-year plan that we're required to do by statute. We have to submit it to Florida DOE, and it has to be financially feasible. So it's not just pie in the sky, we're gonna do whatever we want. We have to take all the factors, the growth, into consideration and come up with this plan and get it approved by the state. So how do we pay for everything? Here, these are all the different fund sources we use for capital expenditures. And to Ms. Hanson's question earlier, this is categorical funding. We can't just say, hey, we want to buy school supplies, we want to pay teacher salaries. There are restrictions on what each fund source can be used for. Those are listed out on page 20 and 21 if you want the definitions. They're also in your packet, but here as well. And so when we talk about, I wanted to point out impact fees, when we talk about new growth only, a lot of other parts of the county say, well, what about us? We were very fortunate in 2020 to pass the half-cent sales tax, and that was what we said the entire time, and what we've always said with those committees is that this sales tax was to help with maintenance, deferred maintenance, and maintain our older facilities. This is our projected revenue, and again, Dawn touched on these briefly. We're required to plan it out 5 years. So this is the individual fund sources. Wanted to point out that the millage, the mill money, which is our safety and security mill that the voters approved, is coming up to be voted back on for 27, 28. In this table, I just wanted to show what it looks like if we don't receive that. Right now, we anticipate about $20 million, and for that to increase 3% every year. But if we don't get it, you know, that's a big chunk that we're missing out on. So of those fund sources, what is already spoken for? What do we already know we're going to spend that on? This is a little bit difficult to see, but it goes through everything that the debt service that we have, the transportation we pay for buses. We're at $5 million. Next year that will actually go down because we will have completed our lease agreement of the 100 buses that we purchased back in 2017. Our safety and security department is listed out there with the 105, and off to the far right, you'll see the different fund sources listed and broken out just for convenience. We also have the charters. We would like to point out that, yes, charters do receive a portion of all of our funding, the LCIF, the EdFirst, and the mill. And you will see those broken down based on the estimate. Those are estimated figures based on their FTE from this current year. So after that, everything else, what is that money used for? If you turn to page 24 in the EFP and all the way from 24 to 37, this is a list of all of our facilities and the planned projects for the next 5 years. Now, because this is tentative, we were still working with what funding is being used for which projects. At final, we will have a column out to the far right that lists what fund source we plan to use for that. So any questions you may get from your constituents, you could pull this up essentially and kind of say, oh, we're using X dollars on that, or we plan to use X dollars on that. Also, we have our EdFirst committee that we meet with quarterly, and we present to you annually the report, just to present and let the community know what we're working on. This is always a fluid document. Of course, we have a plan, and every year we submit a plan. However, things happen, things break. Right now, this year, we're dealing with a lot of unforeseens, I'll say, deferred maintenance, really. So it's a lot of air conditioners. You'll see a lot of restroom renovations, HVAC, and plumbing. And this is just kind of a list, so you don't have to look through here, but just kind of a highlight of all the different things we're working on. And again, that classroom addition at the bottom is Rideout Elementary, and they have broken ground on that.
Ms. Ellis, I think it's just worth noting, because I know the board gets asked a lot, where are you spending all this money? I think it's so important to note how expensive it is to do fire alarms. Like, I see a line item here that's $1 million for fire alarms. That's something people just
Correct.
assume you put in once and you're done, but that's not the case.
Correct, correct.
same
Same
with-
with safety and security.
Yes.
People think, well, we've already done all the safety and security. Well, you have to maintain those systems, or it's technology. You have to keep up with the software, or replace the back end cameras. I mean, you guys are familiar with replacing your computers every couple years, so.
We
yes.
talk about HVACs, those are $1 million a unit, and
Correct.
I see the parking lot renovations, that's a safety requirement, that we have to maintain a safe area for especially students to drive, so.
Correct.
And that's $4 million at Meadowburg. So I think it's just important that the community be aware that these projects are costly. And, you know, our budget, though it seems like large numbers, it gets eat up really quickly with capital projects.
Correct. And we are heavily regulated. We are audited. We have, especially with our Ed First Committee, but all of our other files, we have to maintain those files, and they're monitored. I realize the public a lot of time thinks, yes, that's very expensive. I could do it for a whole lot cheaper. One is, again, we are heavily regulated and we're dealing with people's kids. So there's a lot of liability there. There's a lot of engineering that has to go into these projects as well. And if anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer them, or open up our books. We're an open book.
Quick question. Are the principals pretty much aware of what's coming, what's going to be?
Yes, they're part of the process. We put out a list of, a spreadsheet for them to fill out every year of, hey, give us your top 5 priorities at the school that you're really looking for either this project to happen or something that maybe wasn't on someone's radar for whatever reason. They are involved in the process. And then we certainly meet with the schools, and they are all supplied with this as well, and they do look through it and call us.
Because I could see with, like, some of the older schools that complain they don't get taken care of as well, the complaint. You know, a digital marquee, is that really as important? But obviously, it's on the list, and they want it just as much as the other schools have.
Correct, yes, we do get their input for sure. Any other questions? No? Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, can I get a motion to approve the tentative 2025, 2026 through 2029, 2030 educational facilities plan?
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion from Ms. Clark. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Albero. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next, can I get a motion to approve the global settlement agreement between the School Board of Clay County, Blackwater Construction Services LLC, and Gary Rogers Plumbing Company Incorporated?
I'll move approval.
Can I get, I've got a motion for Ms. Gilhousen. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a second for Mr. Albero. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. At this time, I see no comment cards for presentations from the audience. So Superintendent Broski?
No comments.
School Board Attorney remarks? No comments. And School Board comments? Ms. Hanson? Ms. Clark? Mr. Alvaro? Ms. Gilhousen? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.